Rikki Schlott, a former student at NYU and co-author of the book, The Coddling of the American Mind, discusses her experiences with campus culture and cancel culture on American universities. She shares how she wrote an op-ed for the New York Post about the endangered free speech on campus, which led her to become a columnist for the publication. She talks about the challenges she faced at NYU, where she felt pressured to conform to a specific political ideology and self-censor her views. Schlott describes her time at NYU as a politically charged environment where students were expected to adhere to a particular ideology. She recalls instances where professors shut down discussions or events that challenged the prevailing narrative. She mentions a situation where a classmate was hissed at for playing devil's advocate during a debate, highlighting the lack of tolerance for differing viewpoints on campus. She also shares how professors would openly disparage political candidates or Trump supporters in class, creating a hostile environment for students with opposing views. Schlott reflects on her experiences at a boarding school where students were segregated based on race for affinity group conversations. She recalls feeling shocked and uncomfortable with the school's approach to discussing race and identity. She mentions seminars on topics like Asian masculinities and gender inequality that reinforced a specific ideological perspective from a young age. She emphasizes the impact of early exposure to such ideologies on shaping students' beliefs and attitudes. Schlott discusses the pressure she felt to conform to the dominant ideology at NYU and the self-censorship that many students engaged in to avoid backlash. She shares how she hid her books under her bed out of fear of social repercussions for holding certain viewpoints. She talks about the lack of leadership from professors in fostering open discussions and challenging students to consider different perspectives. She highlights the prevalence of self-censorship among students and the fear of speaking out against the prevailing narrative. Schlott explains her decision to drop out of NYU during the pandemic due to the exorbitant tuition fees and the lack of value she saw in continuing her education. She mentions her lack of passion for pursuing a law degree and feeling conflicted about betraying her beliefs to succeed in a career path she wasn't passionate about. Schlott talks about taking a leave of absence and exploring opportunities in writing for the New York Post, which eventually led to a full-time job with the publication. She reflects on the changing attitudes towards higher education among young people and the need to reassess the value of traditional academic paths. Schlott discusses how the pandemic prompted many students to reevaluate the value of higher education and question the traditional achievement loop. She mentions the changing attitudes towards student loan debt and the pressure on colleges to justify their high tuition fees. She talks about the shift in mindset among young people towards seeking alternative paths to success and challenging the existing higher education system. She emphasizes the need for critical engagement with the value of education and the importance of questioning societal norms and expectations. Schlott points out that the American education system has shifted towards sending everyone to college, leading to a surplus of impractical degrees and a lack of financial literacy among students. She criticizes the system for not guiding young people to explore their interests and career paths earlier, resulting in a generation burdened with debt and struggling to find meaningful employment after graduation. Schlott shares her personal experience of taking time off from college to explore her interests and gain real-world experience. She believes that this break was crucial in helping her develop a clearer understanding of her passions and goals. She also highlights the financial pressures faced by students due to the student loan system, where universities can raise tuition fees without accountability, leading to a cycle of debt for many young people. Schlott discusses the erosion of free speech on college campuses, citing examples of professors being fired or sanctioned for expressing controversial opinions. She criticizes the prevalence of a snitch culture, where students can report their peers or professors for speech they find offensive. She highlights the hypocrisy of university administrators who claim to support free speech but fail to uphold it in practice. The conversation shifts to recent incidents on college campuses where pro-Hamas protesters have been allowed to express anti-Semitic views without facing consequences. Schlott expresses concern over the lack of accountability for hate speech and calls out university presidents for their ambiguous responses to calls for the genocide of Jews. She emphasizes the need for a robust exchange of ideas on college campuses and criticizes the extreme left-wing environment that stifles dissenting opinions. Schlott suggests that the extreme nature of progressive politics on college campuses has led to a lack of boundaries in terms of what is considered acceptable speech. She argues that students may be drawn to more extreme views as a way to rebel against the overwhelmingly progressive environment. She highlights the need for a more balanced approach to free speech and intellectual diversity on college campuses to prevent the normalization of hate speech and extremism. Schlott shares her personal experience at NYU, where she witnessed the pervasive nature of cancel culture among students. She describes how students are quick to shut down speech they find offensive, leading to a stifling environment where free expression is limited. She also discusses the role of social media in amplifying cancel culture and creating echo chambers where extreme views can flourish. Schlott explores the ideological underpinnings of cancel culture, pointing to a Marxist framework that divides society into oppressors and oppressed classes. She notes how this binary thinking justifies extreme actions, such as violence, in the name of liberation. She also touches on the erosion of free speech values on college campuses, where the belief that words are violence has led to a normalization of physical violence as a response to speech. Schlott acknowledges that while cancel culture is more prevalent on the left, there are also concerning trends on the right. She cautions against fighting fire with fire and emphasizes the importance of upholding classical liberal values regardless of political affiliation. She highlights the need for a nuanced approach to combating cancel culture, one that prioritizes free speech and open dialogue over censorship and suppression. Schlott believes that courage is contagious and that there is strength in numbers when it comes to challenging cancel culture. She encourages individuals to speak out against censorship and cancel campaigns, citing the power of collective action in effecting change. She expresses hope in the younger generation's willingness to push back against cancel culture and advocates for teaching classical liberal values to empower them in this fight. Schlott also raises the issue of birth control and its potential impact on women's health. She highlights research showing a correlation between birth control use in adolescence and increased rates of suicide and self-harm among young women. She urges parents to be aware of the potential side effects of birth control and calls for a deeper conversation on its implications for women's biology and mental health.